Hey, hey, hey. Hello up here. Well, it's funny. Hey, hey, hey. And I'm dating myself. A lot of people don't know that. Do you know what that's
I was
from?
like, how long you been waiting to roll that out?
Do you know what that's from? Hey, hey, hey.
I know it's an old reference, and I'm
That's
trying to
right.
think
It's an
of.
old show called What's Happening. And how about
Oh,
this one? Hey, 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 which is said
Fat
completely
Albert.
different.
Fat
Fat
Albert.
Albert.
Yeah. Well, and what's happening? I remember seeing that on TV too, and the one bigger guy had like always had like kind of a beret on, right? And
Yeah,
kind of
right.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I forget his name, but I remember watching it when I was
re-
like little. And
rerun.
Rerun, yes,
Right.
and actually
It was
Rerun
hey, hey,
was
hey, and hey, hey, hey. They're two totally different shows, same three words. And they're trademarked.
Rerun was the pledge name for one of the guys in my fraternity, a pretty big Samoan kid, and we called him Rerun, and we made him say hey hey hey, and so I should have
Dude, did I
remembered that.
say that every fraternity in America has, and
Had a
today
rerun,
still has a rerun?
yeah, of course,
Every single one of them. Right?
absolutely.
Hey, 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 hey. Oh, no. Hey, hey, hey. Right. Anyway, let's get to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Level Up. Last week, we had a lot of comments. If you haven't seen the show, it's in the group. You can find it on YouTube. It was about ATS. Great stuff. You got to look at it. Today, we're going to have a bit of a short episode as we have a hard stop in about 20 minutes. We got great stuff to discuss in 20 minutes. Today, we're going to talk about voicemail call drops. Voicemail call drops. And the pros and the cons, things you should look out for, whether you should use it or not. And we're going to give you a little bit of behind the scene, quick glance at what I think, based upon feedback from the groups, which is why I found them all, and I've used a bunch, are the most cost effective and I think best to voicemail drop programs that they have. Drop Cowboy and Call Loop. What's cool about them is there's pros and cons of each of them, and some have features that the other doesn't, but it's not going to be like the ATS where there's going to be glaring differences. So, Chris, I know you have some strong thoughts
Well, not
on
strong thought.
voicemail.
So not strong. I mean, so I dabbled in some of that, and I don't remember what applications they were. In some of the dialers, the call drops, like that kind of thing. The dialers where it would run through a number, and as soon as
Right.
somebody connected, it would patch it through. And a little bit with the voicemail drops. That was when I was doing like higher volume. I had more of an IT temp staffing business. So volume. I mean, each recruiter getting 100 calls out the day was pretty standard. So my experience with that's a few, probably 3, 4, 5 years dated probably on it. So I'm kind of curious to see where it's evolved and some of the challenges I encountered and some of the concerns I had. I'm curious to see if any of those were
All
addressed
right.
in some
Well,
of
and
the.
I think we should talk about those. So the phone burner and the like, I'm blanking on the other name, another
Phone
call,
burner was one I remember. Phone, yeah.
call,
Ah,
oh God, I'm blanking on it. What they mostly do is there's two different types of voicemail drops. There's the auto dialer type of voicemail drops, and some of the phone systems, which we'll do in an upcoming show, um,
yeah.
have a voicemail drop feature, but they're not auto, meaning they're meant for when you're on your call for the ATS, your CRM, and you get a voicemail. You don't have to sit there and leave the same message over again. You have a pre-recorded voicemail that you just drop in there. It's basically a pre-recorded voicemail that, hey Chris, or no, hey, it's Neil. I just wanted to call in. And a generic one, so you don't have to sit there and leave a 30-second message for 30, 40 calls. Saves you, a lot of time over the course of a week, right?
Yeah, which is one of the things that was a challenge. Like, let's say one or a couple of my team was trying to fill like 20, deployment technician positions for like a long-term temp assignment, and we needed to call just like hundreds of people. And so we kind of tinkered with that a bit because it's basically the same message. Hey,
Right.
this is Josh
Hey, got a
calling from
great
Pinnacle. We've
opportunity
got
for
the
you.
opportunity, yeah, and I remember there was some glitches back then in terms of like kind of the connect. There's kind of a gap before the
Yeah,
audio
you were
started.
mentioning
Sometimes like
that.
it didn't line
What
up. It didn't
gap?
line
What
up
gap?
right.
I didn't know what you were
Yeah.
talking about.
So, and this may not be the case anymore, but I saw where the voicemail wouldn't kind of sound natural because it would either start a second into it or a split second into it, enough to cut off a word, or there'd be like a pause,
Oh,
and then the
wow.
message would start. So I didn't love that. The other thing that was tough, and
None
I
of
don't
these
think this is
have
a
that, by
problem.
the way. I've tested them. They sound totally normal.
They're probably a lot better. It's been a few years, and the other thing that was challenging, I think it might have even been one of them might have even been a desktop application, which was dating me too. It was good for like mass outreach, but then on other searches and in other contexts, it didn't always make sense because I felt like it might be a bit impersonal in some situations because you can't really say the person's name. I'd rather say, "Hey Neil, this is Chris
Of course.
calling about."
And
Yeah, so there's a balance. I think when it fits into your strategy, like I think that there's value. I think it has to be used in the right situation.
well, look, and someone was commenting on a post elsewhere because I've been seeing this a lot lately for people, I guess, looking for shortcuts or whatever, which it can be. They're like, it doesn't make a difference. It's the same thing. Everyone gets their voicemails transcribed and they just read it, and that's not true. I mean, I get them transcribed. I mean, I listen to my voice. I mean, plenty of people do, but there's people that are very against it, saying it's lazy. Just pick up the phone. It's not meant for good.
Well, I was gonna say, so a flip side to that lazy pick up the phone thing is I know like people like myself and some of the guests we had last week and you've been around a while too. We were raised on, smile and dial, get the calls out, that kind of thing. Is a heavy emphasis on phone calls. And then there's whole generation of recruiters that really just prefer to like email and send LinkedIn messages. And I get that. Yeah. So I get that. And depending on the context and who you're reaching out to, everybody connects on different mediums. So sometimes calls make sense, sometimes emails make sense. But I'm an advocate of trying every way to get a hold of someone because you've got to base it on the candidate. So this could accelerate. Like, so say you're not really tuned into making phone calls. It's not your thing, but you do need to reach out to a ton of people. And the email messages and the LinkedIn messages, maybe they're just not there. And maybe you could yield some responses through a phone call. If you can leverage a tool like this to leave like 20, 50, 100, whatever voicemail drops, right, you didn't have to pick up the phone. And then they're calling you back. So I could see that being a helpful tool if that's not a comfort zone for someone. You know what I mean? It makes sense for volume. It could just make sense for I just don't want to leave the messages.
No, if you don't want to leave the message, you don't want to pick up the phone. Hey, listen, when I first started playing with the tool, I loved the idea of it. I'm like, oh my God. And I automated everything with it, Chris. I mean, stupid stuff like new clients that registered on my portal for backofficestaffingsolutions.com where we replace temporary employees as the employer of record. I had to get that plug in. When, like new partners would register and I would send a voicemail drop 15 minutes later saying, hey, see you, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, all right, after that, I'm like, what the, like, I need to pick up the phone or have someone pick up the phone and call them. So, you don't want to go crazy. There's no reason not to pick up the phone for something like that. So the money calls or when you don't have the volume. Now, I have certain people, I get a pretty good amount of volume on my webpage. My website. I'm not going to go and call every single person who clicks a page, but if someone clicks a really key page, and there's a whole bunch of them, they get a voicemail drop. Love it. I use the voicemail drop automated in my case with HubSpot in what they call workflows. And it can go out to 1,000 people at a time. And you need to be careful in that. Well, there's voice broadcasts, and those are
voice
broadcasts is when you have a pre-recorded message, and it doesn't go right in the voicemail. They pick up the phone, or it's like those
robocall. Yeah, sure.
The problem with those is no one listens to them, and no one wants to listen to you giving a commercial, which is obviously where you're going to do it. Unless you're like the superintendent of your school, tell them when it's canceled because of COVID or because of snow, right? Like, I don't like that feature at all. I think you're much better off. I won't even do it with a voicemail drop. So mine will go out to, like we have this gigantic book that's being released soon. You've probably seen it. I think you did. Like staffing.
I think I've seen it pop up a couple of times.
Yeah, I know.
I may have heard.
Yeah. So. There's going to be like 800 people who downloaded the old one. We don't want them to think it's the same. That's perfect for a voicemail drop. You know, I mean,
Right.
hey, just wanted to give you a buzz. You had downloaded our All Book Contract and Decoded. You probably saw the email that we sent yesterday, or that we sent 15 minutes ago. Totally automated, or that we sent on Thursday. It's all automated. Check it out. Here's the link. Let me know what you think. You email me, whatever. Perfect for that. I'm not going to call 800 people just so they can, they'll get the email. I'm going to go to my list of 25,000, right? Perfect for that, don't you think?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah, it fits in the right, like you said, sometimes there's money calls that are better live, and then sometimes there's things that can nudge the process along with a voicemail. And I get what you're saying as far as like when you used to have the one that did the follow up, and you're like, I should be on the phone with these people because I don't
Right.
that voicemail drop probably didn't have value because it was like, okay, then what's the next thing that happens?
It had a
Right.
laziness.
It had a lazy factor, and it didn't have like a clear next step, right? It didn't have like an action that followed. But if you were on the phone with them, you could take them to the next step.
Yeah. So, we have
nice.
a hard stop in about 12 minutes. So I want to get under the hood for like 3-4 minutes each one, and just so everyone can see it and know how they work and compare the different products. Couple of things you need to watch out with voicemail drops. One is I have a bunch of people in my company that use it. Their voicemail drops always when I review it first, always, or personal videos, which are people know that they're going out to everyone. But what they do is, because you always want your audience to feel like you're talking to them. You've got to sound like it's a one-on-one message or call. It can't.
Right, it's just like,
Hi, this is Neil Leibovitz from BackOfficeStaffingSolutions.com. I am honored to have you. Right, that's a voice broadcast. That's a group video. That's not a, hey, this is Neil from BackOfficeStaffingSolutions.com. And I want to give you a buzz. It has to sound like that. Not like it just needs to sound like you're talking to one person. Picture when you're doing it that you're leaving it for one person. Okay.
Which is like, it reminds me, I used to tell my recruiters when they'd make tons of calls, I'm like, you might be making your 80th, message of the day or whatever, but it's got to sound like the first one.
Right.
It can't sound like you're just grinding through calls. Yeah.
Totally. Here's the other caveat. Schedule them to all be done at a certain time on certain days and put it in your calendar. Today is voicemail drop Wednesday at 11 a.m.
Oh, so you're ready to take responses.
Right, because I started doing it. And hey, Neil, hey, what's going on, Steve? Silence. What's up? I don't know. What's up, Steve? You just called me. Oh, yes. Did I call you for, oh, yeah, what'd you think of that message? Was it my book? Was it the webinar reminder? What was it? So be careful with it, okay?
Yeah.
Let's take a look behind the scenes. All right. And let's go ahead and take a look at, let me just see. Let's take a look at Drop Cowboy. Can you see it?
I can see it.
All right, I'm going to zoom in on the full thing there. So this is Drop Cowboy. It's real good. It's got a nice pay-as-you-go feature. I get it topped off like regularly. Now, I'm going to say this. It's all through automation here, so I don't actually come into this interface. I use mine through HubSpot, right? I don't actually move campaigns into here. They're in HubSpot. This one is, again, it's an account. This one I barely use on it. But I want to show you how it does work. Basically, you can add context here, but why bother? But if you want to, it doesn't integrate with your CRM. Use Zapier. We talked about that on our first call. They all have really great integrations that you can deal with.
And integrations come up on a weekly basis with us because, that's what this is all about. All these tools need to work together. So
this works brilliantly with Zapier. Nice and simple. It's an easy thing to do because it's going to take whatever information. Like, again, I don't want to do the Zapier thing, but it works great with it. And it's a really nice integration for it, right? So basically in here, again, if you were going to create something, you add your recording. Now, here's what I like about both of them with voice, with Drop Cowboy and Call Loop. You can either upload a file, but what I always do is the dial in by phone method, right? And it's nice and simple. It gives you a number, you put in the code, and it's just like you sound like you're on the phone, and it's perfect. You upload in there. If you use Zapier, and I use, again, HubSpot, this is a native integration for me, really, almost native, so it works great. But that's why I could keep everything hosted in HubSpot, not here. But again, the only difference is you put your stuff here, and you could just tell it to play this recording, right? And you name them whatever you want on it. So when you have your recordings in here, you can edit them, you could put in your name, call it whatever you want. So you could look at this as just a nice, simple way of hosting it. And it does a whole bunch of other things. It's got SMS texts, right? I don't use that for it. I use my SMS texts, text messages through HubSpot. It's got, if someone calls back, the problem with this is it doesn't use your phone number. I don't like that. Now, I still use it because of the integration, because this works straight with Zapier, or in this case, a direct move to HubSpot. Call Loop uses what's called, for HubSpot and many others, a webhook. And HubSpot, long story short, you have to go to the enterprise level. I have a super high plan, but crazy one, like $40,000 more a year to get that feature. So, and I can't get that with Call Loop. But I love Call Loop, and I prefer Call Loop more for that reason. I don't like the fact, and look, they vary the numbers. They try to make them more local, but it'll come back to your dashboard here, and then you can hold them. Hey, this is so and so. Please call me back or whatever. You can get your information, but I don't love that.
Yeah,
but it's super
bit of a disconnect there. Yeah, it's super cost effective. I mean, you can just do a pay as you go, which is the plan that I'm on for there. Because like I said, I use a couple of them, and I don't use it a ton. $20, right? It's nice and cheap. For again what you're getting, right? Yeah, and the pay as you go, I can see being valuable where, maybe you don't need it all the time. So like, I don't want to pay a monthly fee, even if it's $20 for something that I might use this month, and then I now don't use it for 3 months.
For this one, for 1,000 messages, and how long are you can do? Even 1,000 messages, right? That's $250 a week. That's $50 a day, which you're not going to do. It's $100 for again voicemails, and they're effective. And again, as long as you don't want to go through your whole sales pitch there. It'd be great for contacting a whole database of recruiters with a certain background, or asking for referrals, or prospecting calls about, hey, look, I want to give you a buzz instead of emailing you like everyone else is doing. I got something really cool I wanted to show you, or I didn't know if you checked out this article in USA Today about this, blah, 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 right?
Sure.
So that's what's great on it. And again, you can use it where you can upload all your contacts here. Like I said, if you want to do this, you could set up different sort of integrations there. Can you see Call Loop here?
Yeah, I can see it on the screen.
Yep.
Or wait, no, are we on Call Loop? No, this is. Oh, I thought we were in Drop Cowboy.
No, I'm in Call Loop. Can you see my screen now?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking at it. Yeah.
All right, so this is what I was telling you before.
Yeah.
So let's go to. So this would be a voicemail message, the one that I don't use anymore, when they clicked on the enrollment page. Now, again, what I like about this one is they have a nice follow-up system in it. If you don't have this integrated with a CRM, you can integrate so that after my first message, leave another voicemail 3 days.
You have a sequence. You do a sequence, sure.
Right. I don't like using that when you can use a CRM. So use an integration for it. And the reason you want to use an integration for it is, like, I don't want to send a voicemail drop to someone that already called me back on the first one.
Right.
Right. So you could see this one though. You're going to need to just use it from here and upload it, which is nice and simple, but it has more integrations, but it doesn't integrate with Zapier. So depending upon what your need is and what your system is, now you're using an ATS, but you can use it with MailChimp, or if you use it, any of these others, Aweber, ActiveCampaign, those are all pretty common ones. Don't worry about it. Pretty easy to do. And then you might want to do automation. But don't make it, hey, I just wanted to follow up from my last message, because I made a mistake doing that in the beginning without thinking it through. And I put my automation on here versus automation within the HubSpot. So, what happened was HubSpot can stop it when someone returns. Like, you put rules in there, all sorts of things. This didn't do any of that, but it's kind of cool, right? So it works much the same way. This is the broadcast I was talking about. You can do email follow-ups, which is what I was saying, which is the autoresponder, follow-up name, test, send it 3 days, 5 days after, 7 days after. Hey, it's been a month. It's just a regular follow-up or whatever, right? I only want to send, I don't know what, of course, I only want to send it. Or you can pick your day. Again, like I said, what I learned to do is pick Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. Now, if you do webinars like us, don't do it Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Oh, that's weird. You left your best during your show. Not good. And I had that when I did a lot of automated webinars.
Yeah.
But you go ahead and you can decide whether you want to send a text message. They use the short code, which is cool. Whether you want to send a voice broadcast or the ringless voicemail. This is
How do you feel about text messages as like an initial contact? I could go down a rabbit hole with that, but like, do you find texts are good for a follow-up?
Maybe for another show, because we're running out of time.
But that's a whole other thing.
But it's a great question.
Yeah.
I love this. I love being able to put in who it's coming from versus what you can't do in Drop Cowboy. So you also want this not to reach people after a certain time. So, like, again, I don't need to do this because I already set a time before. You could select your voicemail message here from your stack that you have, or you record by phone or select a recording, right? Or you don't select. You upload or you record by phone. And it works the same thing. You create a follow-up. You're done. You can go into your groups. You can do everything you have. And easy peasy. And there you have it, right? So that quick and to the point, pros and cons of it. But what do you think?
It's pretty cool. I wish I have to leave in like 2 minutes, and you can finish up. Have to finish up without me, just because I got 15 minutes with the CEO at 2:30. But so, what I would have done probably 5 years ago, when I had like 3 recruiters working for me, and we had a high volume of like IT temp openings. Before, the cadence would be I'd have them send out a mass email like the end of the day, so that because I'm not a fan of sending one an email and then calling someone freaking 5 minutes later. Like, let it land, right? So I'd have them send, if I had this, I would have them still send a mass email the night before, like, at the end of the day. And then first thing in the morning, instead of following up on the responses from the emails, and then, you still follow up on those, instead of then hitting the list and calling everyone who didn't respond, I would have had everyone who didn't respond to the email get a voicemail drop, and then just have my recruiters spend all day fielding responses instead of making cold calls.
Yeah, that's why if you want to do that, then you're going to want to use Drop Cowboy and use a Zapier integration that fits in right at the correct sequence. After, hey, I wanted to just make sure I'm just calling. I want to make sure you got my email this morning about that ebook. Do me a favor, check it out. Totally awesome. You're going to love it. It's worth That's a great voicemail drop.
That's a great voicemail drop. Yeah, because you could say, hey, this is Chris from XYZ company. Following up on the email I sent you last night. Give me a call at blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Makes total sense. And then they're referencing so that makes a lot of sense. I could definitely see, examples of my own experience where that would have been really handy.
But you can't do that in Call Loop. But in Call Loop, you can set the sequences, you can set the caller ID, and you can, and it's nice and integrated there. And they allow that voice broadcast. So that's the differences between the two. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned next week for another episode of Level Up.